everyone. I, Rishikesh Mohan Rao Shinde, second year MBBS student from Government Medical College and Hospital, Miras, taking this opportunity to have a discussion on one of the most important topics, that is the leiomyoma, or commonly called as fibroid. We will be dealing this topic under the following subsections, that is the anatomy of the uterus, the introduction to fibroid, the classification of fibroid, the structure of fibroid, the clinical features, the investigations, the management, and the FIGO classification of fibroid. Now coming to our first topic, that is the anatomy of the uterus. As you know, I have drawn this diagram. This is a diagram of female genital tract which shows a pair of ovaries, a pair of fallopian tubes, a single uterus, a cervix, and a vagina. Now we are basically interested in talking about uterus. So the uterus is divided into the upper part, this part of the uterus. This is called as the fundus of the uterus. This is the fundus of the uterus. The middle part, this is called as the body of the uterus. It is the body. The below part, this is called as the cervix. So when we see on histology, the body of the uterus, it is lined by small columnar epithelium. It is lined by small columnar epithelium. But later, as we see in the cervix, this small columnar epithelium, it changes to high columnar epithelium. This changes to high columnar epithelium. So on histology, when we see this transition from small columnar to high columnar, this is called as histological. This is called as histological internal os. This is called as histological internal os. Now there is histological, so there will be anatomical internal os. So anatomical internal os, it is the opening which is present between the body of uterus and the cervix. So this is called as the anatomical internal os. Anatomical internal os. So one of the important concept, the space between the anatomical internal os and the histological internal os, this is called as the isthmus. So the isthmus, only one important point, the isthmus is the narrowest part of the uterus. It is the narrowest part of uterus. Now coming to the cornu of the uterus, this structure, so it is providing attachment to the two ligaments. The anterior one is the round ligament. Anteriorly we get a round ligament, and posteriorly we are getting an ovarian ligament. Now we will see the histology of the uterus. The histology. So you all know this is the diagram of the uterus. So its outer covering, it is outside. It is covered by a layer. This is called as serosa. This is the serosa, also called as the outer peritoneal covering of the uterus. The inner one, it is composed of the inner layer, which is called as this red color. It is called as the myometrium. It is called as the myometrium. And the innermost layer, of the uterus, it is called as the endometrium. It is called as the endometrium. And the cavity which you see here, this cavity, it is called as the uterine cavity. This cavity is called as the uterine cavity. So what all we see in this region? So serosa, as you know, it is one of the outer covering of the uterus. We will be talking about myometrium. This myometrium, it is having a outer muscle fiber a middle muscle fiber and the inner muscle fiber. So what is that? So outer one, it is composed of, outer one, it is having longitudinal muscle fibers. They are having longitudinal. Inner one, it is having circular muscle fibers. While the middle layer of the myometrium, it is called as the meshwork. Now what is this meshwork? This meshwork, it is made up of certain fibers. It is made of certain fibers which is having the blood vessel. So this is called as the living ligature. This is called as the living ligature. So the middle layer of the myometrium, it is called as the living ligature. Now coming to the endometrium. Endometrium on histology will show the stroma along with its glands. Now talking about the blood supply of the uterus, you know it is supplied by the two arteries. First one, it is the uterine artery, and second one, it is the ovarian artery. Now talking, one of the most important applied which is related to this uterine artery is that when you see the structure of the uterus like this, this is the lateral pelvic wall. This is the lateral pelvic wall. One ligament is extending from the body of the uterus, including the fallopian tube, including the ovary which is lying, to the lateral pelvic wall. This ligament which is present, this is called as the broad ligament. This is the broad ligament. And the ligament which is extending from the cervix to the lateral pelvic wall, this is called as the McElrod's ligament or the transverse cervical ligament, or also called as the cardinal ligament. Also called as the cardinal ligament. Now you all know one important structure which is related to this, both the ligaments, is this. This white color which I am drawing, it is the ureter. It is the ureter. So now the uterine artery, it is a branch of anterior division of internal iliac artery, which is coming from this cardinal ligament. It is passing over the ureter. It passes over the ureter and finally reaches to this point, and it divides above into Samson's artery. This Samson's artery which is going into the broad ligament, and one artery which is descending down. This is known as a descending cervico-vaginal artery. So this point of interest, this is the point where the uterine artery is crossing over the ureter. This point is called as water under bridge. This point is called as water under bridge. So why this is important for us to know? Because this point, water under the bridge, it is 2 centimeter lateral to the internal os. It is situated 2 centimeter lateral to the internal os, which is one of the most common point of the ureteric injury during hysterectomy procedures. Coming to our second topic, the introduction to fibroid. So certain basic points regarding this. It is one of the most common pelvic tumor in female. It is most common solid benign tumor in female again. So it is one of the smooth muscle tumor. It is the smooth muscle tumor of the uterus. It is both estrogen and progesterone dependent tumor. So this we have to remember. It is both estrogen and progesterone dependent tumor. Most common age of presentation, it is for 35 to 45 years. It is monoclonal in origin. It is monoclonal in origin. 40% of the cases, they are showing certain chromosomal abnormalities associated with it. Most common one, it is translocation 1214 followed by deletion of 7th chromosome. And the gene mutation which are associated with this fibroid are HMGA2 gene and MED12 gene. Now coming to our third topic, the classification of fibroid. So the fibroids are basically classified into two types, the intrauterine fibroids and the extrauterine fibroids. Out of these two, the most common is the intrauterine fibroid, which are most common. Now this intrauterine fibroid, this is divided into three types. So first we will draw the diagram. This is our uterine cavity. This is our myometrium. This is our myometrium layer. So when the fibroid, it is involving the whole of the myometrium. When the fibroid, it involves whole of the myometrium. This is called as intramural or interstitial fibroids or interstitial fibroid. Next, if the fibroid, it is involving the uterine cavity from inside, this types of fibroid, they are called as submucous fibroid. And if the fibroid involves the outer covering, that is the serosa, if it involves, this type of fibroids are known as subserous fibroid. So out of this, which is the most common? Intramural fibroid, it is the most common type of fibroid out of these three. The second most common in the sequence, it is the submucous fibroid, which is common. And the last, the third most, it is the subserous fibroid. Now this submucous fibroid, it is again having certain types. So we will draw that. This is our uterine cavity. This is our myometrium. This was our normal submucous fibroid. So this is called as type 0 submucous fibroid. It is type 0. It is a normal submucous fibroid. Now if this fibroid, if it involves the myometrium, now how it is involving? If this fibroid, it involves more than or equal to 50% of uterine cavity and less than 50% of the myometrium, less than 50% of the myometrium, this type of fibroids are called as type 1 submucous fibroid. Now when the fibroid, it involves in this way, means if it is involving more than or equal to 50% of myometrium and less than 50% of the uterine cavity, less than 50% of the uterine cavity, this types of fibroid are called as type 2 submucous fibroids. Now we completed about the intrauterine fibroids. We will talk about the extrauterine ones. These are divided into two types again. This is the cervical extrauterine fibroid and the broad ligament fibroid Now this cervical intrauterine fibroids, these are again divided into two types. This is anterior cervical extrauterine fibroid and posterior cervical extrauterine fibroid. So anterior one, it will cause urinary frequency, increase in the urinary frequency. So why it will cause? It will cause because of the irritation of the bladder. And the posterior cervical fibroid, they will cause urinary retention. Now talking about the broad ligamentum fibroid, they are also further classified into true broad ligament fibroid and a false broad ligament fibroid. So these are the diagrams which I have drawn for both of them. This true broad ligament fibroid and the false broad ligament fibroid. This true broad ligament fibroid, this type of fibroid are present in the broad ligament. It is present in the broad ligament. What is the difference in between then false? False, it is attached to the uterus and it is facing and it is inside the broad ligament. So 2 to 3 points of differences between them. In true broad ligament fibroid, we get a fibroid which is present lateral to the ureter, and in case of false broad ligament fibroid, we get a fibroid which is medial to the ureter. In this fibroid, the fibroid is never covered by a pseudocapsule, but in false broad ligament fibroid, this fibroid is covered by a pseudocapsule. Now our next topic, the structure of the fibroid. Now when we observe a fibroid grossly, we can see the fibroid is having a rubbery consistency. It is having a whorled appearance. So suppose when this is our fibroid, when we see grossly, it is covered by a pseudocapsule. It is covered by a pseudocapsule. Now in this pseudocapsule, we get blood vessels which are supplying blood to the fibroid. So the middle structure is a fibroid which is surrounded by pseudocapsule which has got the blood vessels. So from this we can infer the most vascular part of the fibroid. The most vascular part, it is the periphery of the fibroid, and the least vascular part, it is the center of the fibroid. Yes, it is the center of the fibroid. So the periphery of the fibroid, from a pathology knowledge, it will undergo calcification very faster, and the least vascular part, the center, it will go degeneration faster. Now this fibroid, it is having a very less malignant potential, but when we see on H&E section, histopathological examination, when we observe, when there is a more than 10 mitosis per high power field, it indicates fibroid has undergone malignant transformation. Now talking about this malignant transformation, normally we do not see any changes in our H&E section on a fibroid, but if more than 10 mitoses are present per high power field, we can say the fibroid has undergone malignant transformation. So which is the most common malignancy which is associated with the fibroid? So fibroid are also called as leiomyoma. So which is the most common malignancy? It will be leiomyosarcoma. It is the most common malignancy associated. So which fibroid is showing that most common malignancy? It is the submucous fibroid. And when we see this malignant fibroid on histopathological examination, we observe that the whorled appearance of the fibroid is lost. The pseudocapsule of the fibroid is also lost. Important characteristic is what? Mitosis are seen. Mitosis is seen. And clinically, when the patient comes to us, she is complaining about the pain inside the abdomen, and the fibroid size increases. So the most common degeneration which is seen in the fibroid, it is the hyaline degeneration. So one important term, what is the red degeneration? Red degeneration, it is specifically seen in the second trimester of pregnancy. So what is the pathophysiology behind the red degeneration? So the blood vessels which were supplying the fibroid, there is a aseptic thrombosis of that blood vessel. Because of the aseptic thrombosis, there is a aseptic necrosis leading to damage of the fibroid. So how the patient will present clinically? Clinically, she will complain of pain in abdomen, and other symptoms like nausea and other vomiting is also present. So on histopathological examination, we will get a salmon red color appearance of the fibroid. A salmon red color appearance of the fibroid. So the name, that is the red degeneration of the fibroid. And management, we have to follow certain do's and don'ts for this. So do's, we can give conservative management, such as we can give for vomiting, we can give anti-emetic drugs, we can tell her to rest, but don't, we never give antibiotic, we never terminate the pregnancy in these cases. Now coming to the clinical features of the fibroid. So most common presentation, it is asymptomatic. It will not show any symptoms. So this is the most common presentation of a fibroid. The most common symptom when we talk, it are the menstrual symptoms. So in menstrual symptom, which is the most common? It is menorrhagia. Menorrhagia indicates increasing blood flow, increased menstrual blood flow. It is menorrhagia. Now if suppose, if patient, she is presenting with irregular menstrual blood flow, that is called as metrorrhagia. So if metrorrhagia is present, it can suggest a fibroidal polyp. It can suggest a fibroidal polyp. You have to remember one important point. It is never associated with amenorrhea. It is never associated with amenorrhea. Now if the pain is present, it can suggest three conditions. It can indicate a torsion of a fibroid. Two conditions we studied. It can indicate a red degeneration, which is seen in the second trimester of pregnancy. Last one, it can indicate a malignant transformation. Now, what are the effect of fibroid on pregnancy? Now, suppose a fibroid is present, 3% cases can have infertility which is associated with it. Infertility which is associated. Other condition, there can be increased preterm labor, there can be increased chances of abortion, there can be the malpresentation of the fetus, there can be the subinvolution of the uterus, there can be chances of abruptio placenta. So all these conditions you have to remember. Now our next topic, the investigations in fibroid. So which investigations we will do to predict our correct answer regarding fibroid? So investigation of choice, it is a ultrasound. That is the transvaginal ultrasound which we are doing. This is the investigation of choice. So for small submucous fibroid, can we do hysteroscopy? Yes, we can do hysteroscopy, but actually hysteroscopy is one of the invasive procedures. So we are not following. So we can go for saline infusion sonography or hysterosalpingography. So when we inject the dye inside the uterus, when we are injecting, we see the dye is totally filling the uterus except at some point which indicates a smooth margin. So we are getting a filling defect in the uterus. We are getting a filling defect in the uterus suggesting it is a fibroid. And what is the differential diagnosis? It is adenomyosis. Now talking a certain difference point between a fibroid and adenomyosis. So adenomyosis and a fibroid. In adenomyosis we get the endometrium which is growing into the myometrium. But in fibroid there is a solid benign tumor of a smooth muscle of a myometrium. So most common complaint in the case of fibroid, yes, it was menorrhagia. And most common complaint in the case of adenomyosis, it is menorrhagia along with dysmenorrhea. Next, so it is seen 35 to 45 years of age. We know this. It is seen more than 45 years of age. Most common in nulliparous women, and this is most common in multiparous women. So it is a irregularly enlarged uterus we can see because of fibroid which is going in a particular place. There is a regular enlargement of the uterus. What is the investigation of choice in this? We studied it is the ultrasound. And what is the investigation of choice in adenomyosis? It is MRI. Now talking about the management of fibroid. So management is broadly divided into asymptomatic management and the symptomatic management. If a patient is presenting to us as a fibroid patient, if she is asymptomatic, we are generally doing a follow-up and we are doing her annual pelvic examination. But if the patient is symptomatic, one of the best treatment is a surgery. So what are the indications of doing surgery? Indications is when the fibroid size is increasing, or when the patient is having pain, or the fibroid has undergone torsion. So these are the some conditions which can be do for surgery. These are the indications for surgery. We can also perform a medical management. So what are the indications of medical management? If a patient refuses surgery, yes. If there are certain contraindications of doing surgery, if anemia is there or any blood problem, or if patient is nearing to her menopause. So these are the indications for doing a medical management. This UAE, uterine artery embolization, or another method that is known as magnetic resonance guided high intensity focused ultrasound, MRGHIFU. So both this condition, UAE and magnetic resonance guided high intensity focused ultrasound, these are conditions which are indicated when the female family is being completed. Now talking about the surgical management. So in surgery we can remove the fibroid, we can remove the uterus. When we remove both fibroid and the uterus, this type of surgery, it is known as hysterectomy. It is hysterectomy. But when we remove only fibroid, this is called as myomectomy. Now, what are the indications of doing hysterectomy? Hysterectomy is done when the female's age is more than 40 years. Now, if the family is complete, so these are certain indications. If the fibroid is associated with malignancy, we can do hysterectomy. But when we do myomectomy, the indications are when the patient family is not complete, or there is a recurrent abortion with the fibroid, and when there is an infertility associated with the fibroid. Now talking about the medical management of the fibroid. So we classify into two: those drugs which decreases the blood flow but they do not have any action on the fibroid. So which are these drugs? These are the tranexamic acid, it is progesterone, and it is an OCP. We can give this type of drugs. And other drugs are which decreases the size of fibroid and eventually they can decrease the blood loss. We classify them into with the drugs which decrease the estrogen. Which are these? These are continuous GnRH infusion. We can give letrozole, we can give danazol. But the drugs which decreases progesterone are allopurinol and mifepristone. Now talking our last topic, that is our FIGO classification. What is FIGO? It is Federation International Obstetric and Gynecology Society classification of fibroid. So no need to go into the details of this. We will just have an overview. This FIGO, they classified the fibroids into type 0 to type 8. So type 0, 1, 2 and 3. This 1, 2 type and 0, these are included in submucous fibroid. They include submucous fibroid. Type 3 and 4, this is included in intramural fibroid. Type 5, 6 and 7, these are included in subserous fibroid. And last, type 8, it is a extrauterine or broad ligament fibroid. Now we will talk about certain facts regarding the fibroid. So you have to remember it. So most common variety of the uterine fibroid, it is a intramural fibroid. Most common fibroid which causes symptoms, it is a submucous fibroid. Most common fibroid which is associated with abortion, it is also called as submucous fibroid. Most common fibroid which is associated with infertility, it is also a submucous fibroid. Most common fibroid which is associated with calcification, it is seen with pedunculated subserous fibroid. Now a question is asked, what is this wandering fibroid? This wandering fibroid, it is nothing but it is a pedunculated subserous fibroid which has lost its connection with the uterus. Hope you all enjoyed the discussion on fibroid. Thank you.